out all of the moisture out of your body, and you're drinking more water, and the toilet's, you got water in it, so it's evaporating a little bit. You get a massive amount of water inside your house. If it's too tight and you don't have enough air exchange, you'll get mold, moisture, poor air quality. On the opposite side, if it's really cold outside and we have too much air exchange, cold air doesn't hold moisture very well. So that means we either get condensation or we get dry lips and dry eyes and all kinds of other issues that comes from having too dry air. Cracked fingers, busted up fingernails, if we don't have enough moisture in the air, dry skin. So there's always this happy medium. Now what happens if I want to, those HVR and EVRs that we just talked about, the energy rating recovery ventilator and the heating recovery ventilator. If I want my house to be extremely sealed, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna seal everything. I'm gonna foam every window, every crack. I'm gonna buy high efficiency windows that don't leak air. I'm gonna buy great doors. I'm going to spray foam my ceiling to run all my fixtures, and I'm gonna spray foam all my exterior walls. And, you know, it's gonna be super airtight. I'm gonna make it 100% airtight. But I know that that won't work because of all the moisture issues I'm gonna have. So I have to come in with one of those EVRs or HVRs and actually cut a hole in the wall, and it is going to bring in outside air, a prescribed amount. So I'm gonna go, hey, I need X amount of outside air in each one of these rooms. 10 cubic feet a minute or whatever it might be. That might be a little excessive. 5 cubic feet per minute of outside air. So now I cut a hole in the attic wall and I put in one of these EVR units. It's a self-contained unit. And that self-contained unit brings in filtered air. Here's the key to all this. Brings in filtered outside air and tempers it to whatever temperature my thermostat's set to. So if my thermostat's set to 72, it's set on the outside of the building, and I literally take a small duct, like you guys, have you ever seen a duct on like a exhaust fan? A small duct, and I run it into the corner of every room in the house. And it splits up air and it pumps in fresh air, fresh filtered air into that room. Now what does that do? That causes a positive pressure, right? What's up?
So just a question, right? I got an older house. So would I replace the fan in the attic with one of those? The fan that pushes out, brings all the
You could.
air and dust
But
out there?
what I'll tell you is, if you have an older house, you don't need one of those, because you're gonna have enough air exchange that you're gonna have fresh air coming through anytime you want. It's a waste of money, unless your house is like 100% sealed, it does no good to do this. This is how you run, an older house. You're gonna have pollen in the air, you're gonna have dust, people drive down the gravel road, and you get dust in your house, because you're getting that outside air infiltration all the time. What we're talking about is if there's zero outside air infiltration.
So that's actually good, cause that's kind of been ignored, that, annoying me, all the dust.
Yeah.
And then it stays like real hot in my like living room. I got old radiator heat, we had a chance to change them out yet.
Yeah, so what you need to do is go in and seal your whole house first. And then, I don't know that you can get an older house unless you're replacing windows and doors and sealing the floor and you're doing a bunch of stuff. I don't know that you can get an older house to the level that I'm talking without some major expense. But what you need to do is go in and seal everything that you can, and then run a blower door test. And as long as you can get, I think it's like a 1.75 exchange rate on the house, so that means like once a day you're recovering your air. You're good. When you get below that is the issue, that when you got to do what I'm talking about right now. So they actually pump this prescribed amount to each room and get new air. What does that do inside the house though? Positive pressure, right? So every time you open the door, you lose heat out the door, right? But you're only losing it at a prescribed amount, the right amount, because you're causing a positive pressure in your house. You open the door, it goes out. It's just not infiltrating, it's exfiltrating, and it's exfiltrating the amount that you want, that you need. There's some really, really cool stuff out there that we can go over and look at, but the way we build is going to change pretty drastically in the next 10 years because of this technology that we have now that we didn't used to have. We couldn't, back in the 70s, first thing, heating, until the 70s, heating was not an issue. Coal was available, fuel oil was available, it was cheap. In the 70s, we had an oil sword engines, we had some crazy stuff happening with high inflation. It's kind of similar to what we're having right now. Then energy efficiency became an issue. We needed to be energy efficient because it would cost a lot of money to heat your house with electric and different things. So then we went on this insulation kick in the 70s. That's when all this started. And then in the 80s, it went back down. Cost efficiencies went down. And in the 90s, it stayed down. In the 2000s and 2010s, it started elevating again. And that's another reason why it's so important now, because heating costs are so up that we got to do this kind of stuff again. I know that this sounds crazy, and I don't like to make everything into politics, but everything is politics. Who you have in office, what's going on, the amount of work that's out there, how much you heat or cool cost you. Those all are driven by political ideologies. So, drill baby drill, our gas was really cheap, right? So we didn't really worry about fuel efficiency in our cars. People were buying F-350 Fords and they drive around town with dualies and they don't even need it. Guys are daily driving a $70,000 truck when once a year they take their camper to Cliff, which is like 15 miles from here. But they drive a four-door F-250 dually every day. It's ridiculous, right? Well, it's only ridiculous if the gas prices are high. But now the gas prices are high, and I would imagine, I might be wrong, but the only reason that we're not flooding the market right now with diesel trucks is because people paid way too much for them and they can't sell them for what they got in. Because right before this we had, it's the same thing with housing and everything else. The politics run our work. Typically, and you guys are gonna really laugh when I say this, typically there's more work when there's a Democrat in office.
Is that the case right now then, are you saying?
No,
Okay.
I'm saying typically,
Typically.
well, I should say historically,
Historically.
there was more work when the Democrats were in office. I think that has changed in the last 20 years.
Is that because of the unions?
Well, I think it's, I think for many years, for probably the 70s, or maybe even from probably World War II, from World War II till President Clinton, the government was the majority of where the money was spent. So when you have Democrats in office, most of the work was government work. Schools, we were building like the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, we were building schools like you would not believe. I mean, the public school system took off. Everything that you know of, there's very few schools that you know of that were around of any size before 1940s. So,
Is part of the reason why that's changed with the Democrat in office because we're at our debt ceiling?
no, I think what had happened in about the 90s is we hit to the point where private private industry, is building more than what the government is building. I'm talking the building industry, I'm not talking about all of the other stuff. I'm just talking about the building industry in general. Now, the government isn't building as much. When, I mean, DeQueen School was the last school built in Illinois, right? Was that 10 years ago?
Longer than that. I was the first one to go to the high school?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, besides Marion was about 9 years ago. Other than that, what other schools have been built in Illinois? So, what I'm saying is, we hit, government spending on construction is down besides roads. Private industry is taking over. So when private industry booms is when the Republicans are in office. So prior to probably 1998, government pretty much funded most of the construction work, and now, private industry does.
Weren't they going to, I don't know enough about it. I thought they were gonna like rebuild a whole bunch of buildings too as part of that infrastructure plan and like make it more,
Yeah, they're talking about all that stuff, but, I mean,
that's like way down the road yet.
I don't know where all that money is gonna be spent, how fast it's gonna be spent, whether it's ever even actually get spent. I mean, in 2008, 2009, Obama was elected and he did, the stimulus plan. Well, the stimulus plan went out and it was basically all earmarked for green projects. So, schools put in new windows that didn't need new windows because they had $500,000 that they had to spend. They put on new roofs that they didn't need because, well, we call this a green project. They put in new lighting in in the whole school when the lighting was only 5 or 6 years old, but hey, we can switch to this new energy efficiency and then now, so it was tagged for something like that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what the stimulus, how it has it tagged, and we won't know until it hits the people. It's 1,000 pages or 15,000 pages, whatever it is, it's crazy, the amount of information that's there. So, it's probably gonna come out, there's gonna be some tag, well, it has to be spent in, free or reduced lunch minority areas, and we may not qualify for any of it, so Illinois, it might all go to East St. Louis or Chicago.
I got you.
Or it might say that it has to be in a economically depressed zone. So in that case, in southern Illinois, that would be below Route 146. So we wouldn't get it in Marion, Carbondale area, but Ullen, Tams, Caro, Alexander, Polk County, they would all get it. So it's hard, it's really hard to look at all that stuff. There's too much, way too much stuff there that to even figure out. I honestly believe that it should be done, all of this should be done on, they should change it from all of those factors that they're factoring to need, instead of, green or where you're at or what's going on or what your community is, it should be done by need. Because right now, we haven't been there in a year or two, and we need to go, but the Olmsted Lock and Dam is replaced, lock 52, 53, 54, 55, okay? So the one lock replaced 4 locks that were there. Those locks were scheduled to be replaced in 1970. They just got done with it like 5 years ago. There is 150 locks that are in emergency need to be repaired. 150 locks. There's 55 on the Ohio. They were built in 1950s, supposed to last 20 years. They're all wooden. The new one that we got is all concrete and steel. But they've lasted as long as they've lasted, however long they've lasted. Was that 80 years, 60 years? My point of this conversation is, they have multiple ones that are in emergency need to be replaced right now status. That one lock took the entire budget of the Mariner distribution Distribution Act, 30 years. And it's been twice as much every year as the budget. Just the one log.
Why is that?
Well, because they decided to try to do something new. And there's like 5,000 patents, there's all kinds of stuff that, massive waste. Like unbelievable. There's guys that got hired on that job and retired and never worked any other job but that job.
Do you think it's like just incompetency or there's something else going on there?
Inside trading?
It's the government. Alright, so the way it worked, this is no joke. Other than the major big crane that they had that cost $100 million that they took dynamite and blew up when they were done with the project because they said that the engineers said that it's lifted its capacity too many times and it doesn't need to be shipped anywhere or do anything. $100 million. They burned it up. They literally took dynamite and blew it up. Not dynamite. C4. Blew it up. They had 2 river cranes. That way, if one failed, they had an extra one, 50 million apiece. They had 2 concrete plants on site. Every time that they made concrete, they made it twice or 3 times as much as what they needed. Just in case that when they tested it, it was bad, they could continue to work. They had traco after traco and backhoe after backhoe and all kinds of other stuff down there. And literally, whenever it hit, they would be running it, and they would know they're 20 minutes away from the service time. When the service time hit, they shut the key off and they serviced it. If it took 10 more minutes to finish what they're doing, they shut it off, they drove it over, they got it out of the way, they brought another one in, they started working. It's crazy excess, the amount of stuff that they did. Because it's government, and when you start throwing in all of this government safety, all that kind of stuff that goes on top of it, somebody gets injured on the job, and they pull the lever, everybody's gotta quit working. Everybody's gotta go back. They shut down the job site. Alright, let's figure out, why did he get his finger cut off? Well, cause he's stuck it underneath the backhoe bucket. Well, do we need to train everybody? To stop this, we don't want this to happen again. So now we're all gonna get trained on backhoe safety, whatever it might be. It's idiocy. But the point of what I'm saying is, they said that in the meeting down there with them, they said that there are 300 years behind where they need to be at the rate at which they're working right now.
For US infrastructure projects, emergency,
This is just on
dams.
Rivers and dams. It's impossible for them to ever catch up. So, in my opinion, what's the government doing so they spent $30 billion, whatever they spent down there, massive amount of money. We can look it up, Olmsted Dam, it's a massive amount, it's crazy. They said, if we have an earthquake, more than likely the river's not gonna be there. It's gonna be 3 miles, they've already seen, if we have an earthquake, the river's gonna move 3 miles, it's gonna run right around it, it'll be dry where the thing's at. So why spend $30 billion on it? Why not go back with a wood one like we used to, that they built in 1950 that lasted 70 years? And they literally built all of them, all 52 of them in like 5 years. Took them 30 years to build the one. That's the difference between yesterday and today. Now, I'm sure there's some people died on the first ones, because they weren't, people fell off the ground or whatever, but, the difference between what we could do in the 1940s and 50s versus what we can do now, the cost difference, we couldn't build the interstate system right now. The interstate system that we have right now, we could not build with the government the way it is right now. It would be impossible. first thing, every road would be shut down because some tree hugger would be laying in the middle of it going, there's a newt, there's a silverfish. You know what I mean? We can't tear down this beautiful bluff side and build a road through here. This is irreplaceable. So there's no possible way for us to do in the future what we've done in the past, the way it is. So what does that mean for us?
Whole new day.
Tree huggers ruin everything.
Rome is burning. Rome is burning. Capitalize on the best way you can. Make as much money as you can. Rome is burning. No way. It takes a year for them. I worked out on the interstate. Took them a year to dig a ditch from Cairo to Mount Vernon. We built the whole interstate system in like 5 years in that same distance. And all we did was dig a ditch. Kinda crazy. So, you gotta think about that kind of stuff. That's where politics falls into construction. That's where the building envelope is so important, is because when we're looking at the building envelope, we're not just looking at that. We're looking at cost savings over the life cycle of that house. That life cycle of that home could be 30 years, could be 150 years. The problem that we have with the system that we have right now is, how long have you lived in your house? Okay.
I
How long?
lived in my mom's house in here for 13 years, but it was built in the 15 years.
Okay. How long have you lived in your parents lived in?
I've lived in my house for 5 years.
5 years. How long have you lived in your house? How long have you lived in yours? How long have you lived in yours, Sam? How long have you lived in your house?
6.5 years ago.
How long have you lived in yours? How long have you lived in yours, Terry?
3 or something.
Abby, how long have your parents been in the same house?
Probably since my 7th grade year.
7?
8th grade year. I don't know. 5 years, 6
9
years.
Alright.
My parents
so
have been in since the 90s. Like
on
1%.
average, right now, people stay in their house 7 years. That's all people stay in their house.
My grandparents
My
got
parents will be in that
7.
house till they die.
Now, don't get me wrong. when you start
My dad
getting-
doesn't live in his house.
Yeah, so, when you're looking at all this stuff, it's awfully hard for me to plan 150 years out in the house when I'm building it, if I know I'm only gonna average live there 7 years. So if I look at the next 7 years, it says, don't be efficient, save the money. Put the cheap insulation, put the cheap drywall in it, put the cheap cabinets in it, put the cheap carpet in it. I'm only gonna be here 7 years. I'll capitalize on my, because for the most part, those items don't make your house more expensive, worth more money, doesn't make it more marketable. So they cheap up on all of those, cause I know I'm only gonna be there 7 years. On the opposite side, if I'm there 15 years, now it starts making sense for me to
Thank you.
put in
How about you too?
a super efficient insulation, because I'm gonna get that money back over the 15 years. If I'm gonna be there 30 years, it's a no-brainer. I should go full on foam, I should do everything to the hilt. The best HVAC system, the best everything, because I'm gonna get that money back in the 30 years that I live there. The problem is, nobody lives in their house 30 years.
So Bart,
I know people who's been in their house for like 50 years.
They're the exception.
My grandma and grandpa been in there for 60 plus.
It's the exception. The problem is you were able to name one person, you were able to name for one person. I and my family cannot name one person that's lived in the same house, and I'm talking full family wide, other than my Uncle Bob, Wade's dad, for more than 5 years. My aunts and uncles all moved. My mom might have been in her house for 5 years now, but she's been in, well, gee whiz, I went to 12 different schools.
You what?
Not to mention moving before and after high school, not to mention she moved, you know, she's probably been in 15 different houses over her life. For long, or more.
So what do you suggest now for us going forward? Do you think we should build it like totally tight, especially in this climate because of the moisture and the you think we should have a complete controlled environment when we build forward brand new? Because it's like you say, it's Roma's building, so like should we be in it for the long haul for our families and hunker
I
down?
think it is it's a calculated gamble that you make, and you have to base it off of so many factors, and I can't give you advice on how to do it.
Okay. It's
it-
person to person thing,
Yeah.
personal. But what do you?
If I'm her,
Yeah.
and I'm just gonna throw some stuff, so don't even think that I'm not characterizing you. I'm her, I'm young, I'm gonna get a job, and I'm probably not gonna stay in the area. You know, maybe I get married, maybe I have kids, maybe I don't, maybe I, you know, but all of those factors that go into what she's getting ready to decide over the next few years, will, you know, each one of those could change that decision where it's either a good deal or bad. So let's say she decides she's gonna stay here locally, get a job at Fager Beach Key, she gets a job at Fager, she gets married, she has 3 kids, okay?
Let's stay at one house then.
Yeah, you know, the house that you build needs to be your house, you know, and that's everything. You know, it's all right here, I'm never gonna leave Southern Illinois, everything's great. Opposite side, and she decides she's never gonna get married, she's not gonna have kids, and she's gonna travel the country doing construction work. Why would you ever build a house? I mean, it's the two flip sides of both those coins. Like me, I want to move so bad it's not even funny. I do not want to be in my house. I could care less about it. If I'd had my way, I would have sold it 1.5 years ago, and we would be living someplace else. But my wife is, you know, we've got kids, you know, and all this other crap. She didn't have I didn't have a good childhood when it comes to like having one place to go. My family went everywhere, and I had a good childhood because of my family. I could care less where I live. I could literally sleep in that parking lot, and it would not bother me a bit. So would I ever spend the money for that super high efficiency home? Absolutely not for me. Because if I had my way, every time the market went up, I would sell, and every time the market went down, I would buy.
Like off-grid homes for our grandchildren's children. You know what I mean? Just set up a nest egg because Rome's burning. Like if we had the means, we would do it. Like we could travel, but we would have like a home base somewhere in case shit hits the fan.
I don't know.
Yeah. So okay,
those are all good questions.
in this area for mold, because mold's such an issue, is having a completely controlled environment the ideal situation for
It's the ideal
avoiding mold?
situation in every environment.
Okay.
That's the best. I mean, it's the ideal situation. But on the opposite
It
side,
costs money.
it is expensive. I mean, it's gonna cost you 40%.
But if you're gonna stay in Southern Illinois, you should do that when you're
If you're
building
gonna
your
stay
home.
in Southern Illinois, and you're gonna live in the same house for 25 plus years. Yes. If you're only gonna be there for 5 to 7 years, absolutely not. Later, guys. We'll see you.